Hey folks, George Leoniak back with another video, and today we'll be doing the Vitruvian Man, and I'm not going to go into the details of actually drawing the image. This is a famous image by Leonardo da Vinci. I think most people are quite familiar with it. The man in the square and the circle, and we're not going to go over, of course, how to draw this. We are going to primarily focus on how to draw the geometry, what to use, the measurements for getting the square and the circle and the right proportion between those, or pretty close. So like most of my videos, I go back and forth to a PowerPoint with some other things. And if this is your first video with me, a few things, because you'll be able to draw this by hand and just follow along and pause as you go. You'll need a good ruler. I like this one here, the see-through with the 1-inch squares on it. And a good compass, or any type of compass that you can use. And a couple other things that I was talking about getting would be something like calipers to do some more fine measurements. You can start off with that first measurement really well. Another thing that does that well is sometimes I use this. This is going to be a larger drawing. This is another type of compass, which does have millimeter and inch increments along it. You can look around for something like that. You could draw this to any scale, but this one is done, which is kind of cool, specifically to the dimensions that Leonardo did his drawing. So if you want to reconstruct the image to the same scale that he did, this video will help you do that, which is pretty cool to do a kind of life-size version for yourself. So let's see, I'm going to jump into the screen share here. I have just an intro slide to just talk about some of the literature that I came across. You know, just about every geometer gets involved with Vitruvian Man at some point. And there's a couple research articles that I found, or at least one, that covered a few of the other previous attempts at drawing the Vitruvian Man. Quite interesting thing that I found is that you'll see a lot of things around the phi ratio in regards to Vitruvian Man. And there's a lot of literature out there that's saying that that's not something that was specifically encoded or put into this drawing. There's been some documented research of that. This is the article I was discussing. Oh, I should show you this later on. We've got a little bit bigger screen. It's by Victor Martino, and it's Leonardo's Vitruvian Man, a new interpretation looking at Leonardo's geometric instructions. So he came up with, he covered a bunch of the research, and there were two main methods that stood out. Of course, his here, which had the greatest difference, the smallest difference from the radius, which is the diameter, 220 millimeters, of this circle here, and he had a 0.7 millimeter difference from that, which was closer. This was the next best one in line, which March did in 1989, and he had a negative 0.9 millimeter difference from the 220 millimeter diameter. All of them are based off of the 181.5 millimeter square. The things about these two ways of doing it, for one, Martino here didn't really think that Leonardo used this method here that March would use, even though it's quite close, because of, you know, it seemed unlikely that Leonardo would encase it in an octagon so large, but it does come close, and you would be able to just overlay that over his drawing here to scale, and you get the square and the circle encased in this much larger octagon. You have his approach, which gets closer in the measurements, but the thing about it is that if you lined it up on the square, the circle from Leonardo's circle is quite a bit lower. So you would have to actually find the navel. You'd have to move that circle up off the square in order to find that. And as you'll see, finding the navel in this drawing is kind of the trick to getting the circle in the right spot when you can draw it. In the article, it didn't really go over, the paper didn't go over how he did that. The method that I'm using is going to use an octagon that is rotated here. And oops, that one wasn't attached, hold on. Let me just group it. Grouped. So yes, my method here is going to use the octagon as well, and you will not have to reposition the circle, and it's going to come up with the same result that March had here of the negative 0.9 millimeters. You know, the mathematics, I tested it all out. It is the same result with as many decimal places as you'd like to tack on to the end. So mine's the octagon rotated here 22.5 degrees, and it's, you know, oriented with the square and double squares with inside, one square rotated 45 degrees. So I'm going to show you how to do that method because I think it's a real simple way to do it, and I'm going to give you the dimensions that you could start with to draw it right from to Leonardo's scale here that he did. So in order to do that, it's going to get you, you know, pretty close. I didn't, you know, we're taking off a lot of digits after the decimal point here, but if you were to start with a 5.05 inch line, so if you just pause the video, draw that 5.05 inch line or 128.27 millimeters, we're going to start with that line, and then from here, we're going to draw in the rest of the circles here. So we're going to set our compass to the length of that line for the radius. I'm going to draw two circles, and we're going to start with the Vesica Pisces. This is the way I do a lot of my entry point into my drawings. There's not going to be anything new for people who have been doing this, following some of my videos. You're going to create the Vesica Pisces, and you're going to draw the line through the center of this, through the little almond shape in the middle. And then that's going to give you the cross section here where you could put your compass. Now half the radius of 5.05, set it here, drew your circle in the center, and now you've set up the basic situation for the drawing to get started next. So for the next piece, we are going to draw 4 more circles to the same diameter so you don't have to reset your compass. You're going to position them on each of the cardinal directions here, and you're just going to make sure that circle meets in the middle here and go around 4 of those all the way around. And after you've done that, that's going to give you these 4 petals, which Leonardo did a lot of these types of drawings, tons and tons of these drawings, these 4 petal designs, which, you know, it leads me to speculate that because the octagon was such a strong part of his repertoire that he used in a lot of his designs, that maybe that would show up hidden in his layout of the Vitruvian Man. And that's, after doing all this research, that's kind of what I'm feeling might be the case. I'll show you both these articles up close, but there's another one that I found by Mark Reynolds, which was from 2008, which is called The Octagon in Leonardo's Drawings, which goes on and on about how much Leonardo emphasized the octagon in a lot of his architectural and designs. So he may have used this octagon method that I'll be showing you here in a moment to help lay out the foundation for the Vitruvian Man. So here he is, we're going to draw these lines now through those petals. So that's going to give you the offset directions. So we've got 8 directions here now. And from that, we're going to have to draw in 4 more circles and you're going to position your compass needle at the intersection of that 45-degree angle line where it intersects the center circle. So you'll do another one there. You haven't reset your compass at all here. You'll do another one here at that intersection, and another one here, and another one here. So you have these 8 circles around the central circle. And just about almost all the videos I've done where teaching drawing, we've done this same method every time to start the drawing. So this will be familiar rehash of that again for everyone. Good repetition. So now the simple part is to lay out the foundation of our lines for the drawing. You won't actually even have to draw these. The only one you're going to need for sure is the square that is flat at the base here and not the 45-degree one. So if you don't want to draw these lines in, that's totally fine. But if you wanna, you can. So you could just draw your 2 squares and then connect the outer edges of these circles, where the far end of the circle where it's intersecting the line. That will create your octagon. Typically an octagon, the way we don't see it, because it's been rotated here by that, just been rotated here. So now we have the way to do the next step is, where am I here? Yeah, the next step. So I've erased all those other lines because, like I said, you really don't need the octagon. The octagon is in there and the other square is in there as well. This is the key part because, as I said earlier in the video, it was the key thing is to find out how to find where the navel is on Vitruvian Man. So it's something in the more recent article, Mortino's analysis of this. How do you shift that circle up if you're using the double vesica approach? How do you get that circle to be in the right spot? So, you know, after looking at this and really contemplating for quite a while, trying to understand how that may have happened, the solution was so simple when I finally got to it. Well, all you have to do here is draw a line that is going to be tangent to these 2 circles here. So these upper 2 petals, so focus on these 4 petals, 2 petals of the cardinal direction petals. So this petal and this petal, that little arc there, you can draw this line any length. You just draw the line cutting across so it touches the top edge of this. And where that line intersects this vertical line, that's where you're going to place the needle of your compass to draw the circle that will have that difference of negative 0.9 millimeters. So yeah, they have a difference. I mean, no one's been able to reproduce this drawing completely accurate. For one, after reading the article that Mortino wrote, he, you know, the drawing, the circle that was constructed was done out of a few different arcs. So it wasn't just set in one place and done like majority of people are doing these. The other thing is that the square has a slight deviation of like 1 millimeter around. So, you know, it's not a perfect square because of that 1 millimeter difference. You know, when you're doing these things hand drawn, as I do quite a bit, you'll see that there's always some difference, you know, slight differences here that could easily be a 0.9 difference in how it's done. You know, nothing's going to be totally exact on the paper with the pencil as it is here with the computer. So these slight variations are going to be very close to the original of 220 millimeters. You're going to be hovering right in around 219 or something like that. So, okay, so that line, just follow across the top 2 lines here, and then you're going to, this is it rotated here, because the next step, all you have to do is now draw in that circle. So set your compass at the cross point between the line, the vertical line and the horizontal one we just did. And you could either set the compass down here at the base of the flower tip or at the top end of the furthest upper circle here. over here, and then that's your diameter of the circle, which is going to be very, very close to Leonardo's original drawing. So, yep, that's all you had to do. Draw that circle. You've got the square and the circle. And that is the square and the circle in Leonardo's drawing with that slight little difference. So, a couple more things. So here it is. You could put this image right over top or underneath it, and, it will fit just fine. It will look like the square matches up and the circle matches up fine, other than that little difference, which is very hard to tell on when you zoom in too. And then, if you like, you can draw in the Vitruvian Man either by looking at it. You could photocopy a Vitruvian Man and scale it to this size square, and then just trace it on there, whatever you'd like to do. But that will give you the correct, relatively correct proportion of the square and the circle. Now, there's a few more things here I just want to kind of conclude with, and then I'll just show you a few things on the show and tell with the papers and a few other things. Is that if you have this octagon, you can draw it all in now, draw the octagon and the other square. And I'm always thinking about, what does this mean like as a three-dimensional object around the person, rather than just being a flat design? Was there anything else in here that Leonardo was drawing that was, showing us something about this energetic anatomy? Because he is placing the person in a square, and then you have this rotated square to find the upper portion of where the circle bisects the line here. So, before I was really studying the Vitruvian Man again, I've gone back and forth looking at it. I know that Leonardo was really fascinated with this structure, the Rhombicuboctahedron. Let me zoom out just a minute. Well, just one sec here. So this is the Rhombicuboctahedron shape, which is a three-dimensional shape with 18 square faces. This is angled away from you, so it looks like a rectangle, but it is a square. And these 8 triangular faces. And this over here is the rhombic dodecahedron. Now, the neat thing about this is that this Rhombicuboctahedron, which we know that Leonardo also had a fascination with this shape. In fact, he was the first person to actually have documented or drawn it for us to see in our history books. It may have been discovered well before that, but at least the first one we have a drawing of this is. So here's the Rhombicuboctahedron, and it's going to fit right into the rest of the geometry of the drawing that we've been doing. It's now pretty much the octagon that was in it originally is now just touching the inner faces of the other octagon that we have just placed in it with the flat edges. And the cool thing about this Rhombicuboctahedron is that the rhombic dodecahedron, which is a 12-sided face, these are diamond-shaped faces, and I've got some props here in just a sec. I'll show you these things. Fits right over it too, and that is built on the square, which is within here, and the octahedron. So we've just placed an octahedron with the 6 points, 2 facing up and to the sides and 1 pointing forward and back, over the structure with the Rhombicuboctahedron within the inside of it. Now, the easy way to, in your drawing, you can draw all these things easily. In fact, I kind of had that in my original drawing. I was showing that this is all part of the larger surrounding geometry that exists around this when you've drawn it this way. In order to draw that, get the octagon shape for the inner, the other octagon we've just placed in there, all you have to do is take the large square that we've placed here that's going to connect the outer edge of the box that the Vitruvian Man is in. All you have to do is just rotate that, once again, 45 degrees. So we can draw another octagon around this if we'd like. We've just rotated that, and now we have created the cross lines that are going to frame in the octagon that's within there. So we could continue this on and on and on and go octagon, rotated octagon back and forth, double squares, etc. But I just wanted to point out that, yes, this is a 3D geometric shape that can be constructed around Vitruvian Man. Is going to have the octahedron point at the tip. And that, I think, is a geometry, as I'm discovering this, that people who are into the energetic anatomy may want to start to consider a little bit more with the octahedron pyramid structure with the tip forward. I know the star tetrahedron with the rotated cube is also quite a popularized geometry with the double tetrahedrons. Although, you know, other geometers in the past have, you know, put that, overlaid that six-pointed star onto this. And, you know, it doesn't really appear to fit as well as these structures, which just are encased, because Leonardo drew Vitruvian Man in this square, and the circle just happens to fit within this octagon structure shape, etc. So what was he drawing there? Was it just a square or circle? Did it have nothing to do with the 3D geometry? I'm speculating that it may have, with the Rhombicuboctahedron, which we know is a shape that he was way into, as well as the octagon and this rhombic dodecahedron. So here is the completed drawing, just as if, you know, I did it here with the original. That's the way that I did it, with the surrounding geometry of the Rhombicuboctahedron octagon. I didn't include the central square. And I encased it in the outer rhombic dodecahedron without, you know, putting in those lines, and just encasing that all in the sphere as well. So, you know, there's a couple of things. One last slide here, because you can start getting more creative with this if you like. If you've watched any of my other videos, check out the one on the silver spiral, because the silver spiral is connected to the octagon, and that will, you can reproduce that, you know, either on this octagon edge or the other octagon edge within here. And that just kind of starts to add an interesting effect. You can add a bunch of them. I had them on there, but I just left it quite simple to just show how we can create another spiral within here that is not based on the phi spiral, but that is based on the octagon geometry. So there's just a kind of quick rundown of the method that I used. Hopefully you find that quite easy to do, and you could play around with some of the other videos that I've done with the silver spiral or the crystal spiral, whatever you want to add in there, the 24 points around. You can kind of combine all these, because they all start from the same basic Vesica Pisces shape. So a few other things that I wanted to show you. Just wanted to show you these articles up close. They're all free PDFs online, so check them out. This one is the Leonardo's construction method of the Vitruvian Man. With here's just looking at the back here. This gives you the bunch of the literature that he looked at here, that shows the different parameters of people who based it on the heptagon, pentagonal geometry, etc. So you can look at that and some other good drawing techniques that were in here. And then this was the other one I mentioned about the octagon and Leonardo's drawings by Mark Reynolds. So that's another one to check out. That's, you know, just really demonstrates, of course, how much Leonardo enjoyed the octagon in his drawings. I mean, these are just, you know, drawings that we're basically doing. Here's the 4 petals at the beginning that I was showing you. Here's some of his architectural temple layout. Another drawing, there's the what do you call it, the tesseract that we did the drawing of as well. So the octagon symmetry was very much related to the basis geometry for his temple building. And Vitruvius, which he based this on, Vitruvius's work, you know, considered the temple, the man being the temple as well, man and woman being the temple as well. So, you know, it would make sense to me that he would use octagon related structures within this, because he's relating the human as the temple as well. So the octagon relating to the architectural temples being created, as well as the human vehicle as the temple as well, really makes this a nice fit for the temple design and the octagon being used. So here's my other little show and tell piece. You know, a few weeks ago I made this. It's amazing how a lot of these things all kind of link together in the research and discoveries, making things before they become necessary, or how it all works out and the timing. So here's, this is the rhombic dodecahedron with the 12 rhombic faces, these diamond-shaped faces, and within it are the Rhombicuboctahedron. So these are the square faces of the Rhombicuboctahedron with the triangular faces over here. And the way I was showing you that in the drawing today was like positioned and oriented like this, with the square Rhombicuboctahedron, the rhombic dodecahedron shape without it. So, you know, you could picture Vitruvian Man, you know, kind of standing now within this. The square would line up with these outer corner points. They'd come across here. That would be the square that he's in. And then you would draw that circle, and it would meet up at the top point of this piece right here. So from the square, that would be the circle. So, you know, the Vitruvian Man, you can put the drawing within this three-dimensional structure, and then this would be kind of the geometry that we'd be looking at, that Vitruvian Man is encased in, like this, which has the pinnacle of these pyramids facing up with the octahedron and square built this way, rather than you know, having the orientation like with the cube being the central point here, the vertices of the cube. You know, that's another way that it can be looked at. So these are just things you're going to have to, if you're into that, consider and look at. But based on my research and a little bit of analysis on Vitruvian Man and encasing in some of the geometries that exist, it seems to have a good link to that Rhombicuboctahedron, rhombic dodecahedron link. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video and that you find that those instructions were quite easy to follow, and that this other material that I've been presenting here at the end gives you something to contemplate, and let the drawings themselves speak to you. Feel free to elaborate on them and just let them take you on a journey, and that's will lead you to your own discoveries and will augment things that I'm saying here. And I'm looking forward to hearing what discoveries you make, and we can contribute to this pool of sacred geometric language and knowledge. All right, everybody, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Peace.